Hello everybody and welcome to Electric City Sentai Denzicaster, your somewhat regularly scheduled podcast about the wonderful world of Tokusatsu. This is your host Mike Brown. You might have already noticed that this episode is a little bit different than the other ones we've had so far here on the ECS network. There was no cold open because this is not one that we've recorded recently. This is one from the archives, as a lot of people have noticed. When we started here on the ECS network, we started with episode 11, and that was because there were 10 episodes that we had posted on Podomatic and other such hosting services prior to coming to the ECS network. Well, we're going to start posting those episodes, some in their entirety, some in an abbreviated format, because for a while we actually covered 2 subjects per episode, not unlike our Amazon Drive double feature we did a little while back. So today we are going to delve into our archives all the way back to the very first episode of Denzicaster to take a look at Godzilla, King of the Monsters. We recently, and it's going to be coming soon here to the network, did a review of Godzilla 2000, and we're going to be posting that here in the coming weeks. But on the old episodes, the first 10 of Denzicaster, we had already talked about Godzilla King of the Monsters and Return of Godzilla from 1984. And both of those episodes kind of serve as a bit of a lead-in and primer, because one of the things that we decided we wanted to do as we went through the various Godzilla movies was we wanted to hit the first film of each era. So Return of Godzilla serving as the first movie in the Heisei era of Godzilla. Of course, the original, the first of the Showa era Godzilla movies, also the first Tokusatsu production ever. And then we also, with Godzilla 2000, break into the Millennium series. And soon on our docket, we're actually going to wind up watching the Legendary Godzilla to begin the Legendary series of Godzilla movies. So we're going to take a look back and to that very first episode of Denzicaster. You're going to notice a few differences that I want to address here briefly before you listen to that part of the show. And that is that, one, when we originally did Denzicaster, one of the things we did is we had Tokusatsu soundtrack music as our interludes between segments of our show. Obviously, we don't do that anymore for copyright reasons, but we did that at the time. And so you might hear a reference or even a brief bit of audio artifacting as the transition. I'm going to do my best to cut those out, but hopefully you'll understand if you do hear a little bit of that, probably more so at the end of the episode than at the beginning. Second is that for this, having been the very first episode, one of the things you're going to hear is some of our hosts establish their Toku cred. That was something that we did in our very early episodes so that our listeners, like you, would know where each of the hosts was coming from in their viewing of Tokusatsu, their likes and dislikes. So on this episode, as we delve into the archives to check out Godzilla, King of the Monsters, it's going to be myself, along with Dave Fleshman, and then this was the first appearance on Denzicaster of Roger Broom, Captain Smooth himself, America's favorite black man Chris Brown, and our kaiju aficionado Ryan McAllister. So each of those three, you'll hear them discuss their gateways into Tokusatsu and what they like and what they were looking forward to as we started Electric City Sentai Denzicaster. So stick around, folks. The very first trip into the Wayback Machine for the Denzicaster Archives will begin in just a moment as we look back at Godzilla, King of the Monsters, in the Denzicaster Archives. Stay tuned. Hello wrestling fans, Greg Hunter here, one half of the Best Damn Announced Team period, along with John the Body Johnson, encouraging you to join us right here exclusively on the ECS network for the Announcers Booth. Between us, we have over 30 years experience in the world of professional wrestling, and we use that to bring you the insights in the squared circle right here, past, present, and future on the ECS network. So join myself and John the Body Johnson for the Announcers Booth, only on the ECS network. It is myself and Dave back with you, and we are now joined by 3 new voices that will be Here for our feature presentation as we take a look at Godzilla, the King of the Monsters, which is the original Tokusatsu production. Godzilla in Japan, 1954. A couple of years later, it comes out in the United States as Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Directed by Ishiro Honda, with special effects by... with A.G. Tsuburaya as the special effects director, the creator later of Ultraman, and in many ways the Godfather, I was about to say the Godzilla, the Godfather of Tokusatsu. Dave, you had your hand up.
I was just going to say, and every one of them here watched the movie.
Yes.
Unlike Joe, who just came in on the tail end.
Yes, we would have had another guy in here, Joe, who came in at the tail end of Kamen Rider Drive and was in here while we were talking. He actually watched all of Godzilla and left. Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Now, for the record,
well, at least we know
I think
what
that was a
Joe's
very
review
good
is.
explanation for most of us watching this. Let's keep going.
So, we're going to establish the Toku cred for our new guests here on Denzicaster. So we will start with Captain Smove. Go ahead. Tell the people who you are, how you got into Tokusatsu, what you like, what you're looking forward to.
My name's Roger, and I'm an actor and an avid fan of everything Japanese since I was about 1 or under. Because actually, yes, my mom did actually buy me anime to watch as a baby. So
and rice.
Yeah. It felt like it. No, the rice came later when I got teeth.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of Toku for a long time. I've watched the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when I was younger and everything like that, about 15 or so. And I've gotten more into it lately with Tokyuger and Kamen Rider Gaim and a lot of other series. So I'm always up for anything new and just enthralled by all of it.
All right. And for folks that listen to podcasts I'm on, because this is like the third podcast I appear on, and the only other guy to appear on every podcast with me is America's favorite black man and the official Alaskan Penguin of Rage Quit Radio, of the announcer's booth, and now of Denzicaster. Woo! That is the man to my immediate right.
Yes, I'm Chris Brown.
No relation.
No relation.
We made that joke at Gnome Con.
Yeah,
I don't care. I'm doing it
multiple times.
You guys.
And oh gosh, I guess to start things off, I watched the Americans dub version of Ultraman growing up as a kid. The tail end of that. Yeah, the tail end of that before that ran off. Power Rangers came soon after, not too long after that, really.
Not really.
Anime as a kid was it was starting to make a move, especially with like Dragon Ball Z type stuff. So I was really into a lot of the Japanese stuff at the time, and was enthralled by a lot of the Tokusatsu stuff. But I guess realistically, I didn't truly dive into it heavily until I came to South Carolina about 4 years ago, 2011, where I actually started watching Super Sentai pretty heavily. Some Kamen Rider. Could not get back into Ultraman for some odd, strange reason. Years later.
It was better when you were younger.
It probably was.
I was like that the whole time.
The show actually was better when we were younger, except for a couple of movies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty much it from there. So,
and we are also joined by our kaiju specialist. Why don't you let the people know who you are?
Hi guys, listen, my name's Ryan McAllister, and I've been into a pretty good bit of the kaiju stuff ever since I was like 4 or 5. I think I saw my very first Godzilla film in Seneca at a drive-in movie theater, and been hooked pretty much ever since.
Reppin'.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was
My first drive-in movie was Bambi, so
yeah,
word up to you.
I mean,
Return of the Jedi.
Technically, the first movie I saw, which I kind of slept through, was Orca. Thank God. But I heard that iconic roar. That was the first hook. And when I woke up, it was a preview for Godzilla vs. Terror, Mechagodzilla.
All right.
And then we got to see I got to watch a little bit of the preview, and then my parents, decided to leave. But once that happened, I was pretty well hooked. And then next thing I knew, here comes Transor Z. That's my first introduction to anime.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then out of that came, here comes Ultraman 7. And here comes Ultraman, which is the old television series, which you can find like at WGN and all that on the cable channels. And then after that, it was just a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And then when the Godzilla films started making their run on television, I was there. So that's basically where I'm at. I mean, it's been Ultraman, it's Godzilla, it's Gamera. It's a lot of the off-run kaiju films. I have seen some of the Kamen Rider, which is cool. You know, I'm not gonna knock it or put it down. The same with the Power Rangers. I mean, it's got its basis, and you know, it's got its start. So.
And you're going to get exposed to more of that doing this show with us.
Yes, I am.
Oh yeah.
So.
I mean, realistically, that makes you like second generation watching these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Pretty much.
I mean, you and I are about the same age, but I'm realistically like fourth, fifth generation because this is my first time seeing this stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll educate you highly on the big monster films, the big kaiju.
Don't get your hopes up.
We'll get you hooked somewhere, my good man. That's all right.
Yeah.
There were things I liked about it. There were things I didn't.
That's okay.
That's fair.
That's all right.
So, for our feature presentation, we watched Godzilla, King of the Monsters. This is not to be confused with any of the following films. This is not to be confused with Godzilla, starring Matthew Broderick. This is not to be confused with Godzilla, starring Bryan Cranston and the dude from Kick-Ass, whose name I never remember. This is not to be confused with Godzilla 85, or Return of Godzilla, or whatever. So this is the first American appearance of Godzilla. Now, like we said, the movie came out 2 years earlier in Japan as Gojira, and when it came out here, there was a certain degree of Americanization to it. I didn't say it was a small degree. I said a certain degree.
Yeah.
Certain can be an ass.
I enjoyed that.
A large degree.
And for the American version, added Raymond Burr of Perry Mason fame, although I don't think Perry Mason was on the air yet. 1954, 56? I don't
This
think
was
Perry
56.
Mason. That's
I don't-
56.
yeah.
I don't think Perry Mason was around just yet.
I mean,
At that point in time,
If you
I think,
care, Wikipedia it.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
at this
true.
point his claim to fame was from radio. He was the voice of the Lieutenant on Dragnet, the original Dragnet radio show starring Jack Webb.
He was their boss.
Yep. So
Somebody has to be.
and until someone told me it was him, I couldn't tell. So he did a pretty good job.
After seeing this, I like to pretend this is what Perry Mason had to do to work through law school. I had to go be a news reporter in Japan.
He took a summer in Japan and watched Tokyo fall to Godzilla.
So the plot, in short, Wikipedia will tell you far more than we will during this discussion. The plot, in short, is Steve Martin, a reporter for the World News, winds up in Japan during Godzilla's attack. At the beginning of the movie, we see the aftermath of Godzilla's first attack on Tokyo, and the first half of the movie, more or less, is in flashback with Steve Martin explaining how we got through the first attack in the movie. We see the appearance of this ancient monster Godzilla, born of radiation thanks to the A-bomb that was dropped on Japan, and we wind up seeing him rampage, run rampant, wreck Tokyo shit, and then proceed through the heroics of Dr. Serizawa and a number of other individuals.
And Raymond Burr watching intently.
Yes, and Raymond Burr watching intently. We see Godzilla, by the end of the film, in Tokyo Bay, finally defeated through the selfless sacrifice of one scientist after the entire Japanese self-defense force proves themselves to be completely ineffective against anything, including a man in a giant rubber suit.
Now, I may have missed something, but were they the SDF?
At that point, they have to be, because there is no standing Japanese army.
True, I got that. I know the history
Yeah.
of that. But just because they're not the standing Japanese army, I didn't hear them call them that.
They
So
are the military.
I thought to myself, they're just pulling shit out of the warehouses and hoping for the best.
And that might be as good an explanation as any. But
Yeah,
no,
those
I
ships
think
sank
the-
really fast.
I think in the original Gojira, you see where they come out and say this is the Japanese defense.
yeah, I think they actually
dude,
do
I
say
got
it's the
that.
Japanese
Yeah.
self-defense forces. So,
So, I want to ask the panel a quick question.
Sure.
Have you seen the Japanese version? Now, I know your answer, Ryan.
I actually haven't.
I have
Okay.
not.
I have not either.
So you're the only one who really knows what's going on behind the scenes
To an extent, yeah.
Yep.
from what you remember.
But now, to be fair, from everything I've read, outside of Raymond Burr's insertion into the movie, it's actually, from everything I've read, fairly faithful to the original story.
That is correct. What you get there is a little more of the love interest between Serizawa and
You get the left triangle.
Yeah, the little left triangle that's going on there. With Raymond Burr's interaction in it, it's not so much that it's a bad scenario, but with the original version, it's more of you actually get to see the true depth of what happens to the Japanese people. Scene to scene to scene. Now, we were cracking up about, the boat going over and Godzilla basically burping and the thing blows up and all that.
Alka-Seltzer, the hidden killer.
As you started explaining this, I thought to myself, it's like the same movie, but they just changed the focus.
Yeah, they did.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the news report from our news reporter.
That's
right.
right.
Here's the news report. The original Japanese version might have been more like,
Oh,
the news
God,
report
we're going to die!
from the man on the street.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
yeah, it's just Steve Martin, the character, serves as the point of view for the American viewer.
I have to admit, after watching this one, I'd like to see the original Japanese version. I think I'd probably like that one better.
And we will watch the original Gojira at some point.
It has both. Look, here's the problem I've got with Raymond Burr part of it, and I think it goes back to why we had to have Raymond Burr there in the first place. Now I understand we were not initially a part of the World War II until we were brought in from what happened after Pearl Harbor.
Well,
And then
officially, you're correct. I mean,
As an active participant.
right.
Yes,
America was
thank you.
still
As a
heavily invested in Britain.
As
That's
a
true.
Yes.
But
as,
you're
a-
right.
as an
Yes.
active combatant.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Officially, you are correct, but we were all up in it.
And for one, I don't want anyone to think for one instance that I'm not an American. That you can just take that and shove that completely because I'll be up in your face in that in a heartbeat. I just would have rather that the movie Gojira be what it is, and Raymond Burr's version be what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anything really too bad about either one of them. I just kind of, like you, I like the Japanese version because it's the straight line story. Here we had to ease it in by utilizing this one point.
Well, I think my dislike of the Raymond Burr version, and it's not a big dislike, but I think it comes from a different point of view, is like, other than what Raymond was doing, I didn't have a clue what was going on. I really wanted subtitles because I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Truthfully, a lot of that comes from us cutting up and bullshitting, and
Maybe.
MST
That's
came
true.
through a lot of it.
Yeah, we did do
Yeah.
that. That's guilty as charged. Just saying.
But one of the things that, having seen several Godzilla movies that have not been Americanized,
All right.
True.
the thing between the two is, I would rather have this than the dub of any Godzilla movie ever made. And I say that because a lot of the dubs, when they manipulate the dialogue and whatnot and Americanize the dialogue of the movie, will actively change the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, I actually thought, and I made this comment while we were watching, I actually think it's fairly ingenious in that here's this character, Steve Martin, we see everything through his eyes, and it gives you a way in an era where subtitled movies were not the norm by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
It gives you a way, because you got to figure this is 1956. We're not overly removed from silent pictures.
True.
Putting subtitles on screen harkens back to that, so that would have been downplayed.
And we're 11 years after the war.
Yeah, and we are. Well, no, we're
You said 56.
56. So this is 11 years later. The original movie was 9 years later for the original production. We're 11 years after the war, so having the American point of view character
It's gotta
is
be.
there. You got to ease it in. I mean, Godzilla is an analog to the A-bomb.
It is.
Yeah.
And so you have a way through Raymond Burr and then the Japanese attaché assigned to him to introduce all this information, all this info dump that's coming, the exposition from all the Japanese characters through the interpreter.
Right.
So we still hear it without having to see it on screen as subtitles, which I actually think is a pretty ingenious way to do it. It cuts out a lot of the exposition because a lot of the Godzilla movies, especially the early ones, there's a ton of exposition to them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of them get accused for being fairly slow films up front.
I do think it says a lot about Raymond Burr's
Acting ability.
acting ability to carry this film.
It is.
Because realistically, it's Godzilla does stuff and Raymond Burr acts. And the Japanese scenes, sure, they're doing their thing, but if you're an American like me who don't speak Japanese and don't know what's going on, they are just living props.
You get the intent, you get their performance and the emotion, but you don't have an understanding of the plot.
Right, well, I mean,
And
their intent, emotion stuff was
they're afraid most of the time, and then every once in a while somebody's sad.
And that's because those scenes got cut out.
Yeah, I get that. Well, see, now it got edited and chopped up, so
sure.
I mean, it's amazing what they did to take a movie and make half a movie to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's really what they did.
I mean, Mike was talking about how, like at the beginning when you first see the film, and Raymond's in the
rubble.
Whatever. Well, no,
he's in the infirmary.
He's in the infirmary.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and then you see the girl there, and they're talking, and it's
Emiko.
Emiko, thank you. I'm having a hard time here today.
I pulled up the cast list.
Good deal. But you're seeing there, from the original version to this version, which technically is the same.
They had a stand-in that you
only
only saw from her back.
But the stand-in, from the clothes to the way the positioning, everything flowed.
Yeah,
it wasn't really a chop break. It flowed.
They did a really good job of matching shots.
Yeah.
Much better than Power Rangers.
Kinda.
At no point did we go from like the hard foam rubber Green Ranger shield to the quilt that they put on Jason Davis.
Now, I will say in some of the scenes, and this is a nitpicky thing, I know, but I did notice a quality effect of the sound between the all Japanese sound and the American-esque, or we'll just call it the American scenes.
Yeah,
I could tell a difference. It was almost like it was almost like they recorded the sound that they heard in the movie.
Wait till you get a chance to see Godzilla Rise again.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you're gonna have fun with the dubbing and the sound effects there.
Yeah, no, it's not, because we're going to watch the Japanese one.
I know that, but I'm just saying.
We are not watching Gigantus the Fire Monster.
Trust me.
Some of my notes went into this.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
I actually made that note about the sound. I wanted to make sure.
Oh, yeah, you want to tell them about the guest star from Seven Samurai in the movie.
Oh, yeah, it's something that I didn't realize, but as I jump back here between tabs on my computer, Takeshi Samura plays Dr. Yamane, and he's actually second billed to Raymond Burr for the American version. But he's from Seven Samurai. He plays Kanbei, who is the leader of the band in Seven Samurai, which I didn't realize it was the same guy. Yep. So, I mean, and it's the same year, so you can't put age as a factor. I mean, his acting ability, he can go from being the leader of this band of rogue samurai, this very noble character, to being this very aged scientist in two different movies produced in the same year. So I thought that was really, because I just saw it today and literally was like, I think that's the same guy. And Josh was sitting there because he's watched Seven Samurai a bunch of times. He goes, I think you're right.
Yep.
The thing that looking at this movie that I think you have to do, and you made this remark when we were talking about the movie in the room, watching it. I think with anything, and I say this about a lot of film and such, you have to judge it by the era in which it was made. You have to put it in its time. Godzilla especially so, because it is such a special effects driven production.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when you think of it by the technological terms of 1954, with only a handful of shots, this movie still holds up.
Yep. Well, when we were sitting there watching it, I looked to Ryan when Godzilla first pokes up over that mountain. Now, you can look at that scene and go, oh man, that's so cheesy. There's certain aspects about it that are goofy, but he looks creepy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it,
and then he pops over that mountain like, oh, snacks.
I mean, you watch it; it's legitimately, if you're looking at it from a technical standpoint by today's standards, it's a really piss poor rear projection composite shot.
Yeah.
But if you look at it by the standard of 1954, it's a really good effect shot.
Really good.
It tells you the
split
scale.
screen shot.
Yeah. They did a really good job of it.
It reminded me, I know it's going to sound silly, but it really reminded me of the Rankin and Bass Rudolph stuff and the Bumble and all that. Just the way that Godzilla moved in a handful of the scenes.
Yeah.
I was like, is it a man in a suit or is it a puppet?
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
that.
in some instances it does look like that.
And it varies.
Did it?
If I'm not mistaken, didn't they use a puppet for some scenes?
You had some stop motion.
Yeah.
Animation.
But
very little, but yes.
That was very little. It was just some certain views, but majority of it, and that's what I was going to make mention of here a minute ago, or just a minute. It was a man in a suit.
Now, do you have any idea if that scene with the mountain, if it was stop motion or if it was a man in a suit?
That was actually a man in a suit that they actually took and then related into the film.
The thing with the Godzilla, originally, for those people out there who do not know this, the original Godzilla is inspired by the 1933 King Kong.
Yeah.
Subaraya had seen the original King Kong in theaters as a child. He wanted to do that type of movie with the stop-motion animation. Ishiro Honda, as far as I know, had also seen the movie, was very inspired by it. And the original concept, Godzilla, was to be a stop-motion creature. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't financially possible. So it fell on Subaraya to figure out a way to make Godzilla work, and they came upon the idea, they even coined a term for it for years, it was called suitimation, of putting a man in a suit. And the thing about the Godzilla suit, in every iteration, it's the one thing about it that hasn't changed to this day, that thing is heavy, constricting, and you cannot wear it. I think today the safety limit, they say, is 5 minutes in the suit, and then they take the head off of it?
Some of it's been changed. Because each time that suit has been redesigned,
which is basically every movie.
It's every movie. You're right. Give you example, like from the 90s version to the Millennium Reign. Now, some of the Millennium Reign Godzilla is CGI. Some. But not all. And to bring this point home, I'm going to say a side note. I think this weekend in Lexington they're having a comic convention.
Lexington Comic Con.
All three of the original Godzilla wares are there today, including one of them which also did some side work as Ultraman.
Huh. Nice.
And all
of them, Furuya.
I think so.
Yeah.
Every one of them took Godzilla in a different light as far as how he stood, how he walked, how he presented himself in the suit. Each of the actors that was. As far as the time frame in the beginning, yeah, they wore them poor son of guns out.
Yeah,
it was hot and it was heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to take into consideration that when you saw these large, open, somatic scenes of Godzilla going out into the ocean, it was a gigantic pool that was built on the set.
Yep.
And when they walked out, because I've got, I think one of the videos that I've got at home has an interview. I mean, it's like 35 minutes long with these guys talking. And one of them said, look, when the Godzilla of the 90s came out, that was the heaviest suit that was built. And he actually drowned in 2 of the movies that were made.
Because that suit, you have to figure, the suit weighs on average 80 to 100 pounds or better, depending on
what
which
suit it is.
You could pretty much
double that when it gets wet.
Double that was, and then
135 pounds
for the 90s version?
For one of the 90s Godzilla.
And it's 90% or better foam rubber.
Right.
Yes.
So they go out in the
Foam
water,
rubber,
this thing absorbs.
If you've never used foam rubber, it sucks up sweat something awful. So that
Yes, it
will
does.
increase the weight as you sweat and breathe inside the suit. Because I've actually been inside of a suit for different things, but it's pretty much awful, and you have no range of vision when you're inside that thing.
10 minutes is what it's supposed to be. I know that the one guy that did the 90s Godzilla, he said that he had been stuck in that suit for an hour. 2 hours at a time.
I think the shortest span I ever heard, the shortest safe span for one of the suits was 3 minutes. Where it was they would shoot 3 minutes at a time, take the top off the suit, because basically...
Well, that would have to have been one of the other monsters, because where Godzilla comes in, you have to tear out the back dorsal fin,
right?
Open it up,
open it,
because the top does not come up.
I thought one of them had a removable topper area.
That was the 60 to 70s Godzilla, where the head would actually come up and off, just like the one that we saw.
These
on the
people need to
today.
call the Henson Puppet Workshop and get some help, because.
Well, I mean, the thing, but if
You'd
you
be surprised who made Henson. Think about some of the things he did.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting thing when you start looking about it, all of it, and with it's a testament, I think, to Subaraya as a special effects director, that he took what he did on Godzilla in '54 and barely more than a decade later had actually made it cost effective for television and did Ultraman. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty amazing work that they do all the way around.
Yeah.
In the story of this movie, we hit on it very briefly. It is an allegory to World War II. At the time this movie was made, the United States, the Allies, are largely still in control of Japan. It's 1954. So there's still a lot of Allied occupation in Japan. There's still a heavy American presence. And you couldn't really do a movie that condemned the A-bomb in 1954 and get away with it.
Yeah.
Nope.
But you can sure as crap do a movie about a giant lizard attacking and breathing fire on everybody.
Yep.
And that was created by some nebulous atomic device.
Because take a look at how much came out of the backlots at Universal. Think about all the giant movies like them, the ants that were radiated.
Yep, giant monster movies made their heyday right there, right about the atomic age, like the atomic bomb age, when people were worried about foreign powers getting, certain weapons that we did not have and using them against us.
And in Japan, we are the foreign power that has that weapon.
Yep, and then you didn't get till the '60s with Doctor Strangelove, where they actually made a large-scale movie that actually commented on the A-bomb and, in a good light, more or less.
Well, Chris is pointing at something here on the screen that has struck him as odd, apparently. The original Gojira comes out in 1954. It is released in the United States as Godzilla King of the Monsters in April of 1956. Godzilla King of the Monsters was released in Japan with the Raymond Burr footage intact in 1957. That's why you see, he's looking at the article I have pulled up that gives all the release dates, and it was released a little more than a year later. It actually was released to Japan.
Okay, that's why it was confusing me.
So no, the American one did not come first.
So that doesn't seem right at all.
Just throwing that out there.
Those darn Japanese copying us for once.
Yeah.
God.
Not yet.
Yeah, that never happens.
Just reminds me of the Powerful Rangers.
Did that story come across to you when you sat down and watched? I mean, did that actually hit home? Did that get lost in the American translation, or did we actually see that?
Yeah, I think I thought it was very powerful, like the statement of just how the whole movie and how the incoming incursion attack hit everybody, and how pretty much you just saw everybody huddled together around radios and things like that. Some people to skip special effects. Some people use actually people with no legs to show injured and stuff like that in movies, which it's just a cost-effective way to do it. But yeah, I thought it really hit home as opposed to a lot of the other things that would just be for candor.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Chris? What did you take away from watching the movie?
Take away from it?
Yeah, the story itself. What did you get out of that?
I mean, shoot. I mean, besides the obvious, besides what we already know about the analogy that the movie represents, it. To me, if I didn't know all that, it's just monster coming in, trashing town, leaving. But it's how do I want to put it? I think it does a fantastic job of showing what, even from the American side, how devastating something can truly be. Something's truly destructive something can be. I don't know how the exact times were for people at the time when we did drop the A-bomb, other than, all right, we've done our part, blah, 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 but now it's almost like, this is what we did. This is what we did. We're showing it to you. Let's see how many, in my opinion, let's see how many people actually get it.
Well,
that's how I take on
the actual historical perspective of it, and Dave will chime in on this, I'm pretty sure. The actual historical perspective of dropping the bomb from the American point of view, Truman made the decision to drop the bomb ultimately to save lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Historically, Truman didn't even know the thing existed until he became the president.
Right.
When he became the president, people who were in the military in charge of this project came to him and said, "Mr. President, let us explain to you what we got going on and what it can do." And from what I understand, in my own limited capacity, he agonized over it quite some time before he used it. And it was a it really is, and I hate to say it this way, it is a mathematical equation, because the Japanese people of that time, you didn't fight their military, you fought everyone.
Yeah, you fought the country.
As one.
And there are many documents of people and video of them throwing themselves off the cliff instead of facing whatever the evil Americans were going to do to them, because they didn't know. They only had their propaganda machine to tell them.
And you're in a time frame in World War II with the Japanese where they had tried the island hopping, and ultimately, while the Allies were
expensive but successful,
while the Allies were gaining ground, they paid for every inch of ground with barrels of blood.
Yeah.
I mean,
and we know now that high school girls were being trained with sharpened bamboo sticks.
Yeah.
There were military personnel in schools teaching everyone,
do what you can to harass and kill the invaders.
Yeah, I mean, we were going into a situation against a country with an incredible sense of national pride that they were going to defend their homeland against the invaders, which in this case were the Allies, no matter what.
Well,
and
we keep saying Allies, but it was the Americans.
Yeah, but it was the Americans.
You don't get that sense of national pride a whole lot nowadays.
And so you wind up in a situation where it was.
Well, I'm bringing that point up because
it was
America had to make the American leadership had to make the decision it did. Is because American lives were being spent.
Yeah.
We say Allies, but realistically,
this was not the European theater.
Didn't Russia declare war on Japan the day after the bomb was dropped? Or the day before? It was ridiculously close.
Yeah, it was a case of Europe was a wreck.
Right.
And France was in no shape to do anything. Frankly, neither was Britain.
No. I mean, the best hope we had from Britain was they were providing us a base of operation a lot of times with Australia.
Right. So you wind up in a position where we either the cost of lives in the long term will be so great on both sides through this island hopping campaign, and if we have to try to invade mainland Japan, as opposed to we can cost a lot of lives
but finish the war
and finish the job. And in one shot, the A-bombs were a demoralization tactic.
Well, and also to my understanding, the mathematics of it is we actually saved Japanese lives.
Yeah, it was on both sides.
Because the double blind bluff here was Japan didn't know we didn't have any more.
Yeah.
And it would have took years to make more.
Yeah, we had 2.
And that the strength of the bomb was not necessarily the selling point. The fact that 2 of them were back to back and they were like, you destroy 1.5 million lives, I think.
It's
it was
in the
something
millions.
crazy.
And then the
it was
in 3-4 days.
I mean, it was enough to put one on them, and that was the knockout punch. But we wanted to make sure the
you did not get back up.
Was made.
Right. Yeah, and so that's when you look at this. And after a point, when you look at this movie...
Godzilla is like that.
Godzilla is the atomic bomb.
I mean, he wrecks the place.
But
and what's his exclamation point?
Radiation.
Flip your bridge.
The bridge moment was...
Go ahead.
What I was going to say was, it's not the fact that he's made from the atomic. We get that aspect. It's the nature itself. You cannot stop it.
He's so destructive and unstoppable.
Yeah.
And that is the one thing about the Raymond Burr that it made me upset. Raymond Burr standing there with his plutonium Under Armour. Oh, Godzilla, you just wrecked Tokyo. No, here, I'll help you move along. I gotta watch this. Nah, screw that. That'd have been a real kind of... I mean, I know he's supposed to be the brave American.
He's running, he's ducking, he's
sometimes.
like everybody else.
But he's always the last one to be running. He's always the last one to be ducking.
But in all actuality, in all reality, his ass would be...
Yeah, there would have...
Exactly.
The only reason you're the last one in line is because everyone else got out ahead of you. And
No, well, I mean, some people are noble. I'll buy that.
Sure.
But he's the only one every time.
And then if you're him, a building falls down on you, and that's your reward.
But now, if you look at the entire spectrum of Godzilla films...
Well, see, now I don't have that.
I know that. That's okay.
That's okay.
We will immerse you. You will be dripping. It'll be coming from the pores.
Just keep going.
I'm telling you. But once you take a look at the whole entire spectrum
It'll take like 3
of
years.
films,
you
get to see how each era, whether it be the 50s into the 60s, you see the era of what's going on in culture, not only just in Japan, but worldwide, has influenced
true of all
how
kinds of
all of
media.
it does.
Godzilla,
Godzilla should be what it should be. A fun film with a guy in a suit destroying stuff.
But was it meant to be?
No, not the original.
Not the original.
But if you do look at the underlying story, and I will play on top of what you said, either we're focusing on the first one, but Godzilla changes with the age, but I think that's one of the things that makes it more interesting when you watch Godzilla, because it is, in essence, the same character every time. This is something we know, that is familiar, that can be identified, that consistently changes with age. Yeah. It gets consistently reinvented. That's why I think
it evolves.
Exactly. That's why I think you can have Godzilla in 1954 be a blockbuster. Godzilla was meant to be a B movie. It had almost practically no budget. The original budget of Godzilla, and this has to be adjusted for inflation, was $900,000, and I think that is current American money, like in 2015. I think that's 2015 dollars. It actually drew at the box office $2.25 million.
You're talking Kevin Smith style movies.
Yeah,
yeah. Well,
and
that's why horror movies and monster movies are so popular, because you can make them for almost nothing, and then when they bring in the money, or if they bring in the money,
and even if they don't, they usually
double
break
your
even.
money.
The Blair Witch Project. Yeah, that's the perfect example.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Psycho, lots of stuff.
That.
Yes.
And I'm looking here, the original box office in 1954, the movie sold, and remember, this was designed to be a B movie. It was a black and white film in an era where color was already happening.
Right.
Yeah.
It was on a shoestring budget. The black and white was used so that it was easier to hide wires, to put things in shadows.
Chocolate blood.
I mean, literally, if you fast forward,
sauce.
just a couple of years later, 2 years later, Rodan comes out. It's in color.
Yeah.
There are only 2 black and white Godzilla movies.
Yep.
And we're talking about both of them?
Japanese
and the
no.
American?
The second one is Godzilla Raids Again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This one was geared toward nostalgia critics or nostalgia fans of the nostalgia of the black and white
I was about
movies.
to say, and everything you're saying reminds me of Night of the Living Dead.
Probably in a lot of ways. I'm sure there are similarities. But you look at this, 1954, a B movie that was it was the bread and butter. It wasn't the moneymaker. It was the let's just make a movie.
Make a double feature.
Let's see what we can do.
Exactly. Sold 9,610,000 tickets in 1954. Japan alone was the 8th best attended Japanese film of the year.
Wow.
And to this day remains, and this is as of the writing of this article, so I'm assuming this probably goes through Final Wars, is the second most attended Godzilla film of all time, second only to King Kong versus Godzilla.
I can believe it.
Wow.
Just on attendance. And when it came out originally, it was very mixed and negative reviews in Japan. Their critics considered it an exploitation film.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which, I mean, in certain ways, I think that can be I think that can be exactly a valid argument.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, as and I'm kind of reading through this as we're talking, Ishiro Honda, the director himself, actually lamented over the movie years later, saying, quote, "They called it grotesque junk and said it looked like something you'd spit up.
Wow.
I felt sorry for my crew because they worked so hard."
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't that critical of it.
No.
No.
Yeah.
It is now considered to be the 27th best Japanese film ever made.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That thing got some gold over the years.
It was a survey of 370 Japanese movie critics published in a publication, the American name, the 150 best Japanese films. It was ranked number 27.
Wow.
So, and it was actually nominated for 2 Japanese movie awards at the time. It was one for Best Special Effects, and it was actually nominated for Best Picture.
Huh.
It won Best Special Effects. It lost Best Picture to Seven Samurai.
There you go.
Fair enough.
So,
And this guy was in both
If you're
of them.
going to lose to the champ.
I was going to say, I mean, take a look at what it was running against. I mean,
This guy was in both of them. He
Yeah,
was
I'm
his
just
agent.
You're going to come into second. Come into second to something amazing.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So, looking at this film, is there anything that you look at and you say to yourself, this... Because there were some scenes, there's a handful of special effects scenes where I just look at and go,
Now, are we just focusing on the idea of special effects?
No, we're focusing on everything. I actually found the story resonated and held up to me. So I was fine with the story. I was fine with Raymond Burr's involvement in the story because Raymond Burr is not involved in the story.
Yeah.
He is the observer.
He's the
translator.
He's pretty
Yeah.
much the narrator. He's the narrator.
He
of the
is
story.
exactly what his character is. He's the news reporter.
Yeah.
So I was cool with that. To me, there are a handful of effect scenes that bounce me out a little bit. But that's because we're watching this on DVD in high definition.
I gotta admit, I think that was probably the best part of the movie. The dialogue and getting lost in the stories what kind of upset me. It's where I got lost.
Well, you had mentioned it, watching this in there. You said you were watching it and you're watching it in the here and now, as opposed to putting yourself in that role in the 1950s.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's a little too far back that I can't get that
Your head
immersion,
around.
but I can immerse myself in the video and accept it for what it is. You know, it's a guy in a rubber suit. Okay, I'm okay with that. I'll suspend the disbelief and giant monster came over the mountain, going to eat people, ran through town, flipping bridges. That cracked me up.
Yep, his other arm.
Let me ask you a question.
Lights came on and boats sank.
Okay, let me ask you a question on that. Because you made mention before that you have seen Power Rangers.
The TV show, a long time ago.
Okay, fine. What's really the difference between Godzilla and Power Rangers? You're still dealing with a guy in a suit. In aspect.
You might be working under the misinterpretation that I enjoyed Power Rangers. I watched Power Rangers.
My apologies there.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a hater, but I'm not a fan.
I agree with you.
It was something that came on in the mornings. It came on while I was getting ready for school.
It's good background noise.
In the evenings,
martial arts
came on.
Always good.
After the show I wanted to see, or before the show, if I remember correctly, in my local channels, it was Power Rangers, then Batman the Animated Series.
There you go.
That is correct.
Best show ever.
So, Power Rangers, to me, owes its popularity to Voltron and Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, Voltron.
Outstanding.
I agree 100%.
That's true.
And I'm not opposed. Now, my little brother liking it. My little brother's 9 years younger than me. So I'm 17 at the time. He's 8. He's going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for the show.
Yeah.
Taking him to the movies when I was 19 and he was 10, and being able to have those bonding moments and stuff. That's why I like Power Rangers. Just I like SpongeBob SquarePants and Pokemon because of the times I spent with my daughter with it.
Yeah.
True enough.
Okay, that's fair.
Didn't you say during that, Mike, that was the first time Godzilla used the breath?
Well, it was the
In
first
this
time.
In this
Godzilla...
movie, it's the first time Godzilla, but the Godzilla atomic breath in this movie, it is the effect for it was very different than what you would see later, and I think it's a testament to the movies.
I agree with you that him using that radiation breath and melting the metal.
It's a difference when you see the atomic breath in the films today. One, it's a CG effect. If you cut back to the 90s, to the 70s, to the 80s, it's animated more often than not. In this, there is animation to show the
cartoon
spins.
Animated.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Oh, I want to see that.
But I mean, it's animated in this one to show the glowing dorsal fins, but that's about it. And but when you watch it now, what it hits blows up.
Yeah.
In this one, you get the sense of radiation.
Yeah.
Shit melts when it gets
and
hit.
then the
fire.
The island when he firfirst popped up, they were like, "Oh, the well's radiated."
Yeah.
It's been contaminated, you know.
So you got that with Godzilla 2014, but you didn't
because he is radiated.
How things melted when he threw his
and
breath out.
People
Because
getting
he
sick.
once.
Well, I mean, in fairness, I mean, I have to agree with what one woman said on Facebook. She said, because I didn't really think much about it. I was too busy trying to see the nostalgia in this. And it kind of did dawn on me. She was like, look, folks, what he's doing is kind of like what dragons, what the theory of dragons would do.
Yep.
This isn't an actual radiation. It's an actual fluid liquid that he's throwing out. If you go back and look at it and really slow it down,
Are we talking about 2014?
2014.
Oh, I didn't see it. Okay.
It looks like a liquid fire, not so much at the radiation.
Look that way.
In this one, rather than using the animated fire effect that we see now, it's actually a fine water mist.
I was gonna say it looked like an irradiated steam to me.
Yeah.
Because I thought the idea was, I know the backstory of analogy of the atomic bomb, and he got woke up from these bombs and stuff, and he's coming up, seawater all in him, all nasty. Here, you can have some of it back, guys.
I've actually got something pulled up here because I want to touch on this. And this is actually from the original Gojira.
Okay.
But this is in 2004 for the 50th anniversary. It got released in America as Gojira to theaters, which is the first time ever, to my knowledge, that was actually put in theaters in its original form. On Rotten Tomatoes, for instance, it has a certified fresh rating of 93%. This is a 50-year-old monster movie. How
fresh is a 50-year-old movie? Apparently pretty fresh.
Yeah. Entertainment Weekly's Owen, how do you say that name? Owen Gleiberman gave it an A-. I'm not a big believer in letter number grades for stuff. But in his review, he describes about how it is an ancient beast roused from the ocean depths by the Japanese H-bomb testing, carrying... the characters talk about him not as an enemy, but as a force of destiny or an act of God.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say force of nature.
Force of nature. Like something, it's going to happen.
This will happen.
You
cannot stop it.
You keep going forward, and apparently the way he read it And I don't know if this is perhaps I don't know, maybe to an extent this was part of the subtext of it. An inescapable subtext is that Japan in some bizarre way deserves this hell that has been brought upon them. He is the symbol of the, and I'm paraphrasing, he is the symbol of the nuclear apocalypse, but he is also a primordial spirit of Japanese aggression turned with something like fate against itself.
I'm not buying.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that either.
I can kind of see that because the Japanese, culture is all about honor and what is honorable and what is dishonorable and stuff like that. And I don't know. I could maybe see kind of like that it was a punishment for things that they've done, but I don't want to read into it like it was something in the war that they did or something like that. But I can see where it's coming from.
I must miss that then.
The let's see, Luke Thompson of the Dallas Observer said the 1954 Japanese cut is shot like a film noir. The build-up to Tokyo's inevitable thrashing is quite slow by today's standard, which it is.
That's true.
It is.
But echoes of World War II are very strong. The devastation wrought by Godzilla, played in the suit by Nakajima, is not sugar-coated. It mirrors Hiroshima and Nagasaki eerily. The deaths and injuries are dwelt upon. It's not one of those things like you look at the modern monster movie and you look at something even like Pacific Rim, which is the closest modern analog.
I'd say. Yeah.
No, you see the death and destruction and we pass by it.
Well,
yeah.
The nearest analogy I can come to that is that abortion of Superman movie I was talking about.
Man of Steel.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like it, and there was a lot good about it. But that fight at the end where
he just destroyed New
Yeah,
York,
yeah.
more or less.
Metropolis just gets
yeah.
pummeled repeatedly, and I'm like, that is so not Superman.
No, that's not the Christopher Reeve Superman I grew up with.
I mean,
personally.
no.
He was all about saving human
But
life.
I see where you're going with
This
that
guy
because that
would,
was
you
the
know.
same argument they had with Godzilla 2014.
Right.
How much destruction can these two big blockbusters bring to the screen?
Yeah.
That was one of the bigger arguments that was made.
Nice.
And I'm thinking, to me, if you don't have some death and destruction, it ain't floating for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we have...
but the point is there's the death and
Don't
destruction,
worry
and
about
they
that.
just whitewash it.
Oh,
Yeah.
my bad.
You know, the city's broke. Let's not talk about it.
Now, this
Well,
is...
they-
Where in this one, the city got broke, and people had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, man. Go ahead.
Now here's the last one, and this is the one that I don't like to trash people on air or anything like that, but I 100% disagree with this review that is written. So this is by Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times, who most people know he is a very renowned, very well-respected movie reviewer.
Whoa, who'd you say that was?
Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert.
Now the reason I bring this up is because this is, in my opinion, an example of the not judging something for the time in which it was originally created.
I'll pay you not to say anything.
No, I'm going to read it.
Oh,
He admits that the film
Calm
is
down, Ryan.
important and that properly decoded is the Fahrenheit 9/11 of its era. So he does give a credit in that. But in this, and I'm reading this verbatim, in these days of flawless special effects, Godzilla and the city he destroys are equally crude. Godzilla at times looks uncannily like a man in a rubber suit, stomping on cardboard sets, as indeed it was, and did other scenes show him as a stuffed, awkward animatronic model. This is not state-of-the-art, even at the time. King Kong, 1933, was much more convincing. When Dr. Serizawa demonstrates the oxygen destroyer to his fiancée, Emiko, the superweapon is somewhat anticlimactic. He drops a pill into a tank of tropical fish, the tank lights up, he shots stand back, his fiancée screams, and the fish go belly up. Yep, that'll stop Godzilla in his tracks. End quote. And
you cannot do that.
Yeah,
you
no, you
cannot
can't.
put those two films in context like that.
Because this is someone judging a 1954 monster movie by the standards of 2004.
You just got through saying again how much money this movie produced and how much money it took to make it.
Yeah,
How
well-
much money did it take to put King Kong out there from Universal?
In 1933, yeah.
I'm not.
How
picking,
much?
But that's not really the real
That's not
issue
really
here.
the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, these-
I mean,
He's deadbeating on special
quite
effects.
frankly, him doing that is just phoning it in my opinion. That's just a lazy review.
Yeah, he could have.
Yeah.
I mean, that's be like, oh, well, I didn't like the movie because there weren't enough American. You know, just nitpicking bullcrap is what that is.
But you get
Now,
that today a lot.
I
for
will
a lot of
agree.
movies.
Oh, yeah.
I will agree that the scene where he puts the pill in and it's like step back and like I said it during while we were watching, I was like, oh, it's a fish tank. Oh, she's sad. What happened? Oh, we don't get to see that now? Okay, we're gonna wait another 45 minutes.
because the movie doesn't show that result until later on.
It's
That bugged me,
Now-
but I get
sure.
that was a...
It's to be a reveal.
That was a
Yeah.
director or editor joke, or not joke, but choice. And
yeah.
I didn't like it, and I'm okay with that.
I jokingly tell people when they ask me to give the synopsis of the movie, and I say it with tongue firmly planted in cheek, it is Godzilla shows up to Tokyo, Godzilla wrecks shit, Army does nothing, Godzilla gets bored, goes back into the bay. Act 2, Godzilla shows up, Godzilla wrecks shit, Army continues to be ineffective, Godzilla gets bored, goes back out the bay. Act 3, dude creates the Alka-Seltzer tablet, drops it in Tokyo Bay, Godzilla dies. End of story.
Just remember
Now,
Act 2, we get the bridge flip.
Godzilla is
I-
mostly made of heartburn. Apparently.
I think Roger's point of the Japanese honor concept and the Dr.
Sarazawa.
I think that is a perfect...
Yeah.
This equals that. When he
Yeah.
goes down and goes, cuts the rope, burned all this, in earlier he burned all his notes. He's like, I'm going to use this one time. I'm not coming back up.
I'm not going to make another one.
They make the point to show the Oxygen Destroyer as a weapon destructively Godzilla's equal.
Yeah.
And so here is the force of nature versus the power of the force of nature in humanity's hands.
Yep.
Because science!
Yeah.
Because of course they'll use it.
Nature is nature, but we have the choice not to use this
it.
against our own.
I think what one guy said about the film, if I can remember correctly, in one of the videos that I was watching, the actual capsule itself was supposed to be a visualization of what one of the bombs would look like when he went down. But that was, like you said, that one is controlled by me,
Yeah.
self, man, versus this other thing that nature created after the effect. That's the whole main purpose on Godzilla. He's the effect of what happened after the fact. And what you've got is something that you cannot take out, you cannot stop, you cannot destroy. We have seen different variations throughout the whole entire history of things changing. But that is primarily what one guy said that whole synopsis of that scene was supposed to represent.
And I think if you look at the way the container, we've seen that this thing, which looks like a marble, or in the case of the container about the size of a softball, will not activate on its own necessarily. I mean, it
had to be dropped into the water for
Right.
Water activates
Water
it.
activates it.
Yeah.
But we see that there's a significant time delay. There's no real reason to put it in something that's shaped like a bomb.
True.
Unless you want that visual. I never thought of it that way. Unless you want that
symbolism.
visual
That
symbol.
was from the director when they did that. That was to show what, hey, look, we get you. We get what you've done. We understand what happened.
The symbiology.
This is our version
Yeah.
of what it looks like. Godzilla is what nature's version looks like once everything's done.
So,
Yeah, I don't think I.
well,
that's
read that
the
deep into movies. I
symbiology
get
of
what
it
you're
for all you
saying.
being
Yeah, I mean,
it all
Boondocks
makes
fans.
points.
That's the whole argument, I think, on the first Godzilla film. Everything else after that doesn't become quite
Right.
so.
Cerebral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, to give an idea here of exactly how much this film hits home ultimately, and I think this is probably a really good for people who look at Godzilla. Either way, long and short, the original Gojira and by logical extension King of the Monsters 2 years later spawned 27 Toho sequels,
Yeah.
Wow.
2 American films. Assuming that you count the first one. So, well, I'll put it like this: 2 American films in the loosest definition of the possible word for the first one.
Yeah.
But and it has inspired numerous animated series, parodies, imitators, comic books, numerous. It is a worldwide cultural icon.
Sure.
And phenomenon.
And can honestly be considered the grandfather of Tokusatsu as a result. This is the first one that falls firmly into that genre. So, closing thoughts on the original Godzilla as it was first seen by American eyes in 1956. Raj.
I thought it was a very powerful piece, and I could see why it spawned so many, pretty much sequels. And then this is pretty much where the phenomenon started, and it's pretty much been a phenomenon because we're still talking about it today.
Chris?
I agree. I mean, great film, a powerful message. I mean, classic in all rights. This film has done wonders for what's come from it.
Yeah. this is like a B movie. It's supposed to be ended up on the cutting room floor. We're still talking about it.
Yep.
Today, yeah.
Over 50 years later.
I see its cultural importance. I'm going to look at it from a personal point of view. I was not super impressed. It was a movie. I think maybe I came in with a little bit of the hype under my belt, thinking this was going to be a magical trip, and it was like, hey, there's 7 funny things. There's 3 scary things. I'm done.
From my perspective, looking at it, I look at it as a fan of the genre going in, and to me, I can see for what it was in 1954. I can see it being a massive deal. I can see why it spawned the phenomenon. And I can also see in it, this is where Tokusatsu is going to go. This is where all this came from.
I'm not trying to take anything away from its cultural worth or its genre's worth. I'm looking at it, quite frankly, first-time viewer.
Sure.
I'm not even aware of the genre that much.
Well, what I'm saying by that, though, is not so much in that. It's that I think there are far better Godzilla films. There are far better stories within those films. There are better analogs to the atomic threat than this film.
Well, see, I don't want to watch it as an analog for an atomic threat.
But that was what their intention was. That's where I'm going.
Yeah. I want to watch it as a monster breaking things and either save the day or don't, and deal with the repercussions.
But moving forward from that, it's very easy to see that this is where the legacy of a genre that I love starts.
Now, and it's easy to see why.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not trying to take anything from it. It's easy to see why this genre spawned from this movie. Whoever you keep saying is the godfather of
Tsuburaya.
Yeah, well, Godzilla is the daddy of all this mess.
I mean, it's like if you went back and looked at the Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon serials, you can look at those and go, and
their face.
But no, I'm bringing this home to something that me and Dave will very much identify with. It's easy to look at those serials and go, and here's where Star Trek came from.
And Star Wars.
Or Star
and
Wars.
Stargate.
Yeah.
And every movie since.
All kinds of sci-fi. You're going to see all these threads.
There's always a pioneer. The first
just because you get the ties don't mean you're going to like them.
Right. Let's go to the man who calls this his favorite genre of stuff.
Outstanding. Listen, as a kid growing up, basically I was a loner, and I had a really wild imagination, and that pretty much can lead to blood in the water for other kids. Godzilla was really more of a. It's not so much that it was Godzilla in a suit, a guy in a suit, and it was a fun movie. The genre in itself, the creature in itself, was a childhood favorite. And there's been a time or two as a kid when I got in a fight, I was like, okay, what can I do? Just remembering something stupid in a Godzilla film.
Flip him like a bridge.
Breathe on him.
Pretty much that, or grabbing one and slamming him into
a building,
a pole.
Yeah.
Pretty well stop the bullying.
What would Godzilla do?
I'm going to eat your family.
As Godzilla, the first film, I would say if you're going to want to really invest the time, start with this film first. Put aside the politics of it. Put aside any of your doubts. Just go in it with a bag of popcorn and a drink.
Yeah.
Sit down, watch it, love it for what it is, or hate it for what it is. But I promise you, if you give it a chance, it's like an idea. Once it festers, it grows. And before you know it, you're conning with everybody. You're buying merchandise. You're in it with the rest of us.
Or you at least got a respect for those who do.
Correct.
One of the greatest strengths of this movie that I never really thought about until today, you can watch it as a serious allegory and take it for that story and put yourself in that time and watch it. Or it makes as much just a fun, cut-up, laugh experience with your friends around a coffee table.
And I gotta be honest, I don't really like doing that, but it was entertaining. Everybody's all like, mystery science this, and I'm like, screw those guys. If I want to talk over a movie with idiots, I'll do it with my friends. I just did.
All right.
Yep.
So, folks,
You leave Tom Servo.
that is it for the first episode of Denzicaster. So, hope you enjoyed it. On our next episode, I will be joined by some people who we don't exactly know yet. Probably the people in this room, because I'm going to try to get some recorded more this evening while we're here. But look forward on our next episode. We will talk about Power Rangers Dino Charge. That is the new adaptation, U.S. adaptation of Kyryuger. Very good show thus far, but we'll see what everyone else thinks of it. And we will check out Shuriken Sentai Ninja. We'll check out a few episodes of that on our next show. So for Josh and Joe and Richie, who have all departed earlier in the day, I'm Mike.
David.
Roger.
Ryan.
Chris.
We'll see you next time on Denzicaster. Thank you for listening to this episode from the Denzicaster Archives. All music heard in this episode composed by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. We want to hear from you, so like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Denzicaster, and follow us on Twitter @ECS Podcasts. And of course, share, like, subscribe.